Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome back. You are watching the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage, and you are about to watch, if this works properly, the bobbin winder on my Singer 99K, which I have been trying to solve the mystery of why it keeps not engaging. But before I did that, I chose to take a pair of tweezers to one of my vintage bobbins because all of this was on here. I've talked to you all before, I believe, in other videos, why sometimes you have a bobbin and it keeps, your bobbin thread keeps, basically you think it runs out, only to find out that it was basically full of many different threads, not all tied together, because someone had used the bobbin as a mending bobbin, and whoever had it, I'm sure they knew which bobbin was the mending, and they didn't want to take all the thread off, so they would just add enough thread to do whatever they were doing. And I just spent the last 10 minutes plucking it off because I love vintage bobbins when I can get them. And you better believe I took the thread off. So I spared all of you the joy of watching me do that. If that is something that you would find, well, hopefully not any less interesting in listening to me talk about how paint dries on a sewing machine in the paint series. So today we're going to focus on the bobbin winder. Now, the bobbin winders on vintage Singers of this period are typically wonderful. They're simple, they're strong, they're robust. And I believe all of you, speaking of tweezers, you may have seen me in an earlier video. I saw a thread remnant, just a piece of thread that had gotten caught. Let's see, let me get something to point right there. If you see, I'm taking this little screwdriver. There's a gap right here. And of course, this big piece here in black is sort of like it's like a big long bushing. This is the shaft of your bobbin winder, which is attached to your bobbin winder tire. And I was fussing with it and fighting with it. We're going to see if I have succeeded in getting it to work. And because I have shown all of you in earlier videos about just, how do you oil a machine? Just, what do I need to do to get my machine oiled before a project? Well, one of the places I did not show you was right here. You may have seen me in an earlier video putting sewing machine oil here because that is the normal oiling point for the bobbin winder, because obviously it has to have oil. I'm going to go ahead and add, normally you wouldn't have to put any there, but I'm going to do it anyway for good measure. I'm not choosing, although I had used, remember I had used the valve oil. I've shown this in other videos. This is a very thin machine oil with a solvent in it. I got it at a music store. I was using that to try to clean any old goo that was in here, but I had a suspicion that that thread remnant had something to do with the problems I was having. I couldn't get the tire or the drive shaft to spin properly. So I inspected more and more and more for any sort of loose, radical little pieces of thread. And then I actually came here. This screw is actually attached to a bracket where it can swing, and I slightly, I thought I had adjusted the distance between. This allows you to adjust the distance between when the bobbin winder is out and then how it comes into contact with the hand wheel with the spring. So I moved it slightly downward, not much, and we'll see if that helps. If not, then you will see me go back to the drawing board, because that's what we do when we learn. Learning is a process of trial and error, and hopefully watching these videos will help you avoid some of the errors, the trial and error. That's how we learn. So if you make a mistake or you try something, it doesn't work, of course you shouldn't give up. That's how you are learning, right? If you knew how to do it all, there would not be anything for you to learn. Okay, let's zoom back out a bit. And now that I have my vintage bobbin and it is clean, what are we going to do? We're going to get our bobbin thread set up here. Let's see which one I'm going to use I have a black thread, but that won't show up very well for you guys on against a black machine. So let's see. How about this one? This is sort of a copper colored. It's a little more brown than this orange thread that you see there. That should show up for you guys okay. So if you need to wind a bobbin on a Singer 99 or a Singer 66 model, you do not have to totally unthread your top thread. That would be kind of, you like, oh, my bobbin ran out. I gotta get my bobbin thread. I gotta get my bobbin rewound. You don't want to have to undo all this. You don't have to. Of course you don't. You can take the top thread spool off that spool, and all you have to do, in fact, let's bring it around here to the left and just get it out of the way. In fact, I'll actually put the spool underneath. Just get it out of our way. And if we actually, I take that back. Let's come up and we'll take, and don't take everything out. I'm just taking it out of that first thread guide. Remember, you have the spool and you have this thread guide. But everything else we're going to leave just as is, okay? You don't need to undo your thread down here. You can leave your thread in your tension assembly as is, no big deal. Now let's come up here with the thread whatever thread you're going to use for your bobbin, because you're going to use that same thread guide, but then you're going to come back this way. Okay? You're going to come back and you're going to come down to that thread guide down here, what I like to call the number 2, because it looks just like the number 2 if it's facing you. And then that thread should be ready to go upward for winding the bobbin. But of course we need our bobbin. Now there are 2 ways to do this. And I've shown this in my earlier attempts to get the bobbin to wind. Of course, I showed you in an earlier video, and it made a little ratty nest of purple. I had purple thread at the time because it wasn't winding properly. So hopefully we're going to get a better result. As I showed you before, you can install the bobbin, and then you can, look at that. Do I still have thread on there? That just about tricked me. Look at that, everyone. I have a steel gray colored thread on a bobbin. How about that? I thought I was done. Well, you get to watch me take some thread off a bobbin anyway if you have the patience. This again will happen to you anytime you get vintage bobbins. You may think, oh, I'll just use that thread on that bobbin. No sense in wasting it. And if it keeps running out on you, but you still see thread, it could be that your thread is breaking, yes, or it could simply be that I'm just pulling the thread here off the bobbin. It's like a little yo-yo. Okay, let's see. And gosh, look at that. I think there's yet another color. If I can get it to be still. Look at that. I think there's even a blue thread in there. It just goes on and on. But I am eventually going to get to the bottom of the bobbin. I can't believe I said that without not getting all tongue-tied. Okay, what is left here? What is left? Come on. And I think I got the gray thread off. Yes, and we have just a little bit of blue. Promise I didn't plan this. As soon as I thought I had all the thread, I didn't. But these vintage bobbins, and you all have heard me talk about them before. If you need new bobbins and you don't have any vintage, you can use new bobbins if you get the new metal ones. They're not made as well. Sometimes they will cause problems. Let's see. I'm having to make my own little holder here. Look at that. I think we are now finally, we're finally ready with a clean vintage bobbin. Okay, so when you are going to thread your bobbin, remember, as I've shown in earlier videos, there's a hole. On the older bobbins, you'll just see they're solid, but then you'll see a hole here, and then you'll see another hole on the other side, right? And you want both of those. Now, there are newer 66 bobbins that have more holes in them, and you can use those. They're as long as they're metal. Now, I can either thread the bobbin while I'm holding it in my hand, but let's try it by installing it here on the bobbin winder mechanism. Now, remember what I showed you earlier when the bobbin winding did not go well. Right here, this is actually a good place to see. There's a little prong sticking out right here, okay? So if you put your bobbin on, right, when you first put it on, notice that there's a gap. Zoom in and you'll see that a little better. You guys see the gap there? The bobbin has not come flush with this nickel ring here. That means it's not installed yet. So I'm just hold your bobbin winder wheel still, and just turn your bobbin, and whoops, did you see it plop in there? That's because that prong went onto that one hole on the side. And if you come around, you'll see that's the remaining hole. We need this hole on the left side here because that's where our thread is going to go. Okay, so I'm bringing my thread up from where it is already threaded on the guides I've shown you. Now I'm going to show you from this side. Okay. Now you can see I've got some nice sunlight coming in from the left side. You'll see that hole. Always again start with your thread on the inside of the bobbin rim, not on the outside. Okay, you're not going from the outside in, you're going from the inside out. So take your thread on the inside rim, push through that hole on the left side of the bobbin. Okay, I think I got it. Now, keep in mind your bobbin is, and if I zoom back out, you'll see, pay attention that when you're dealing with strands of thread is like a squirrel. It'll want to go places. So notice I'm going to have to come back and get that thread guide at the bottom there. Whoops, and there went the bobbin. This can easily happen to you, especially when you're doing this for the first time. It's happening to me. This is not my first time, but I got this camera in front of my face while we're doing it. Okay, so now we have the tension back. Now, what you want to do here, go ahead and push down. Okay, now if you push down here, get back there, bobbin, behave. If you push down here, which people sometimes do, you might hear this piece fall and click. If it doesn't, you can push down on it. Now, as I've shown you before you turn your hand wheel, let's come back up for just a moment. What you can do is take your bobbin winder tire and just turn it away from you. Keep in mind that your bobbin is going to want to flop off here because remember there's nothing holding it down, but that's all right. And what are you doing? You're just priming the pump here. You're getting a few rounds of that bobbin. You're getting just a few turns of the bobbin so you can get some thread started on the bobbin. Okay. Now let's push down. We got this piece in place. Before we do anything else, we're going to take our scissors and let's go ahead and get this thread tail out of the way. This is probably how a prior owner or two got into trouble with the bobbin winders because they had that tail sitting there, or it could have happened under other circumstances. But when threads go winding, they like to wrap around things and they create problems. Okay, so everything's there, but those of you who sew, you already know this. You're still not ready to, I have it plugged in, ready to go, but we're not going to do that yet. We have to disengage our needle. Okay, that is why we have a big knob over here in the center of our hand wheel, one of the reasons we have it, which is it's called a clutch knob. And when you think of the clutch of a transmission, right, we don't want the machine to transmit its power like it normally does during sewing over to the needle. Because while we're winding our bobbin, our needle will be going up and down, interacting with our bobbin thread, and will create a big pile of basically a rat's nest of thread and a lot of work for you to just have to disentangle. And so the machine is engineered not to have to do that. So over here, normally you won't have to turn the machine sideways. I'm doing this for those of you who've never seen this. So hold your hand wheel still with your, I'm right-handed, so I'm using my left hand. I'm going to turn to the left or toward you if you're facing the machine just a bit, maybe a quarter of an inch. And what you'll notice is this big knob, which has threads, it's threaded into the drive shaft of the machine, it was nice and snug. And when I turned it back maybe a quarter of an inch, now it's loose. You stop there. You're not loosening the knob to take it off. You just want to barely loosen it, okay? Now, if you're not sure that it has disengaged your needle, you can test it with, get back, better angle there. You can test it manually. Again, just notice I'm touching I've got my right hand on the hand wheel here and I'm turning it, but notice I'm getting some movement here, right? And I can hold, I'm just holding my take-up arm there to see. Okay, sometimes that needle is going to want to wiggle, okay? And it can happen to you because this system of how the clutch knob works is not perfect, okay? And I could take the knob off and try to reinstall it, but for now, let's try it this way. Okay, let's get everything in the picture here, in the cam view. So I'm going to start. I've already got my machine. I've got my bobbin is set down. It's now locked into the bobbin winder because I've pushed down. I've got the priming. I've got a few rounds of thread. I have it in the right hole, and I have disengaged my clutch knob washer here. So I'm going to start, and I'm just moving at a normal pace, not anything crazy. I'm not going fast. And sometimes you will see that your bobbin may load evenly, which sometimes the thread will go back and forth, and sometimes it won't. And if it doesn't, sometimes you can literally just take your finger and just nudge it. You want it to be basically balanced and even. The other thing you're going to watch for here is that when the bobbin is loaded, the bobbin winder should stop for you, just like I showed you in the last winding video on this machine. And well, I ran out of thread. well, sometimes if you don't have a lot of thread, I didn't have a lot of thread on this bobbin, but what you will see is as the bobbin, as it gets more and more full and the level of thread comes up to the edge of the rim, before it goes beyond the rim, or just before, you should see the bobbin winder do this on its own, because behind this piece is a spring that's loaded with tension, and basically this gets pushed back to a certain point and then it clicks back on its own. Now, sometimes you'll have it, and if it doesn't do that, you need to stop yourself, or you'll end up with a bobbin that is overloaded, and overloaded bobbins do not work because they need to be able to turn properly in the bobbin case. So, but that is essentially, and I don't need a full bobbin here. I just need enough to do test stitching and let someone try out the machine if they're going to purchase. But that is the winding of a bobbin on a Singer 99, or a Singer 99K, or a Singer 66, or maybe the 66K if they built them in the UK. I can't remember. There's so many of the Singer models. And that's how it's done. It should work, and hooray, it is working. I had managed, I thought I was going to have to replace it with one of my salvage parts, but I don't. And that's nice. But again, I got lucky. I was able to get more lubrication in there, and I was able to get the thread remnant. I don't know if there's any more thread caught in here. I can't see, I can't get to it, but it's turning fine. It's not fighting with me, and this should work beautifully for an eventual new owner. Thank you all for watching and viewing this channel. If you have not subscribed, please do so. You can just click the subscribe button. And if you would like to support my efforts to rescue more sewing machines and show them on the channel and show the techniques I use to bring them back, please feel free to donate to the channel. Every one of my videos has a little link that says buy me a coffee, and you click on it. It takes you right there to my Vintage Sewing Machine Garage Buy Me a Coffee page, and you can donate to whatever level that you feel inspired to do. I appreciate all of you watching, and we'll see you in the next video.